Hi, this is Dan Heisman, and I'm sitting here in Wynnewood, Pennsylvania. Wynnewood is a town inside Lower Merion Township, just outside of Philadelphia. And we're kind of in mourning this week. As you know, our hometown boy, Kobe Bryant, passed away in a helicopter accident a couple days ago. And I thought I'd make a video that was kind of a tribute to Kobe, and I would weave that into our chess theme. Kobe apparently lived up on Remington Road, well less than a mile from here, up the road. Used to play basketball here. He graduated from Lower Merion High School, as my son did. My son was 5 years younger than Kobe, is 5 years younger than Kobe was. Kobe is a big hero around here. They named the gym at Lower Merion High School after Kobe, and I'm sure they're going to do more now. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Kobe's fighting spirit and what that has to do with chess. You know, Kobe was always working out at the gym. He would shoot and shoot and shoot. You know, people do that at chess too. They work really hard at it, and you have to work the right way. And when you play, you have to play hard. I know a lot of people who work hard at chess. They work really hard, and then when they play the games, you know, they misguide how they're playing hard. They give people draws who are higher rated. They play too slow. They play too fast. They give up if they have a couple bad tournaments. I'm kind of proud of myself. I didn't start playing tournament chess till I was 16. At that age, Bobby Fischer was already the two-time U.S. champion. Most grandmasters are close to grandmaster strength when they get to 16. And here I was almost a complete beginner at age 16. So I think I did really well to become one of the top 25 juniors in the United States before I turned 21. I got my expert title in 3 years from the time I started as an unrated player. So that was all pretty good. I mean, I was never going to be a professional. If you start at 16 and you're going to go to college and get a job, not too much chance you're going to be able to work as much on chess as Kobe did on basketball, or what a lot of the chess grandmasters do when they start really young. But I'm happy with where I got, considering how late I started. In any case, when you're playing chess, you need to really fight. Now, sometimes my fighting spirit when I was playing was not as good as my spirit to improve and things like that. Sometimes I would give people draws because I would get bored with the game or whatever. I certainly wasn't Bobby Fischer, where every time someone offered a draw, I would say no before they would finish the sentence. So in that sense, Bobby Fischer is certainly going to be a lot more comparable to Kobe Bryant than I would be. However, I did have a really good, competitive spirit. If I needed to play for a win, I always did. I think I told people the train story, which I have on my website. I did it for chess.com, where when I first got to be a good player, we didn't have sudden death time controls. You could play, your game could last, 6-7 hours easily. And I was playing in a strong tournament in Philadelphia, and I was rated 1700, so I must have been playing for about a year and a half. I was rated 1700, and I got paired with a couple 1900s. And both games were very, very tough and very, very tight. And I fought hard in every single move. And we started play, I think the first round was at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had taken the train down to Philadelphia. I lived in the suburbs. And I fought hard for like 6 hours. And when my game was done, there was only a little bit of time left before the pairings for the next round, which let's say were at 5 o'clock or maybe 4 o'clock. I can't remember. And I quickly got something to eat, and I ran back upstairs and I played my next game, and that went for 6 hours. And when the game got done, there was just one more train running back to where I lived. And I ran over to the train station, and I got on the last train, and I was completely exhausted. I had played for 12 hours, and I was on the last train. It was getting near midnight. And I said to myself, wow, is that what it takes to become a good chess player? I have to really battle hard on every move. Every move is the move that could lose the game, and you got to play your very best on every single move. And that I always did. As I said, I might have given up a draw too early in some games, but I never tried anything less than my best on every move. And I was sitting there in the train saying to myself, well, I could probably, now that I know what to do and how to play, and I'm a pretty good player, I could probably be a lot less exhausted if I would not give it 100% on every move, just give it, 90%, and, kind of save myself a little bit from getting killed like this. And I sat there and I thought for about 30 seconds, and I said to myself, if I ever do that, I'm never going to play tournament chess again. I'm just going to quit, because I could never look myself in the mirror after a game and say, I didn't try my best on every single move. And that certainly did mark my career, was, I always wanted to do my best on every move. When I played my first master around that time, my friend said to me, Dan, you're playing a master, you're only like 1600, he's going to kill you. And I said, Les, I can't worry about that. His name was Lester. I said, Les, I can't worry about that. I'm just going to try my best on every move like I always do. And if he beats me, which he probably will because he's a master, I'll look myself in the mirror after the game and I'll feel good about the game. Well, I did try my best on every move that game, and I beat the master. It was the first master I ever played. And six months later, I got paired with the same master again in the same hotel where we were playing for another big tournament in the same first round. And he was out for revenge, and I had black, and I beat him again. At that point, he said to me, what are you going to be doing here? And I said, well, after this, I'm going home. And he says, no, I mean, what are you doing with your life? And I said, oh, well, I've been accepted at Caltech. I'm going to go out to Pasadena, and I'm going to study mathematics. And he said, gee, what a shame that you're going to have to go to school and ruin such a good chess career. So I thought that was a very nice comment. Okay, so when I was thinking about honoring Kobe, I wanted to come up with a game where I had to fight really hard. So I immediately thought about my game at the U.S. Amateur Team Championship. I was playing on a team for Penn State with Donald Byrne, and I was second board. And in one of the later rounds, we were in a three-way fight for first place. In those days, there was no U.S. Amateur Team East. This was the only U.S. Amateur team in the country. So the winner of the tournament would be the U.S. Amateur Team Championship. And I was playing in a match against Temple University, and Donald Byrne won on first board, and we lost on fourth board, and our third board was still playing, and it looked like he was going to lose. So the only way we'd have a chance in the tournament, and certainly the only way we could have a chance in the match, was if I won the game, because we needed to at least tie the match to keep us in the running for first place. I think we were 3-0 at the time. So I had to play for a win no matter what the position was. And I was playing a friend of mine, Eric Tobias. And normally if I'm in an endgame that's dead equal against a friend, I'm not going to try to grind him down. But here I had no choice. I had to play for a win. And of course I did. I played for the win. So I thought I'd show you the game. It's not the best game I ever played. It's not the most exciting game I ever played. But it certainly, I think, represents a good fighting spirit. Let me flip the board around. Game flip. I was black. Okay, so, and let me turn on the engine here. Let me just make the window a little bigger here so I can get some computer analysis underneath. Turn on analysis, and I'll make the board, bring the board back down so only I can see the analysis. That way I won't disturb you here. Okay, so I think I got the board back to about the right size. All right, so Eric played e4. Now, of course, when the game started, I didn't know I had to play for a win, but in those days, I was playing Nadorf Sicilian anyway. So here we go, Nadorf Sicilian, a6. So the two most popular moves in those days were bishop g5 and Bobby Fischer's move, bishop c4. Eric plays Bobby Fischer's move, bishop c4. I play the main line e6. He plays the main move, bishop b3. The idea of that is to prevent later ideas like knight takes e4 followed by d5 with the center fork trick. I play bishop e7. He plays f4. And now I should stop his move e5 with a move like queen c7 to guard the e5 square. Stockfish says I could also castle. And if he plays e5 now, I can play d takes e5, f takes e5, knight f d7, and Stockfish says that black's already better. Instead, I made a mistake. I played b5. And here, Dr. John Nunn, writing in his book on the Nadorf like 10 years after the game was played, says this is not so good because of e5. Here, e5, d takes e5, f takes e5, knight f d7. He can play bishop takes e6. And Stockfish says, I can't take. Knight takes is too strong. I can play knight takes e5. Bishop takes c8. Queen takes c8. And maybe I'm fighting for equality here since I've got the e-pawn back. All right, so back to the game. So Eric plays much more cautiously and plays a3. I was always glad to see a3 because that gave me time to develop my pieces. He's worried about b4, removing the guard on the knight so I can win the pawn on e4, but the best way to stop that is to push that pawn. So I get a chance to play bishop b7, and Stockfish already says the black's better. White plays queen f3, guarding his e-pawn. I castle. I could also play knight bd7, threatening knight c5, hitting that pawn a third time. That would be accurate. He plays f5, and I play the standard kind of response e5. And now we're going to be in a big fight for the d5 square. Knight de2, knight bd7. He plays knight g3, and now since he didn't play bishop e3, I should play knight c5 and hit this pawn again, even though he just guarded it. I played rook c8. As I point out in my book, The Improving Annotator, there are some Grandmaster games in very similar positions where black plays an early rook takes c3 and then wins the pawn on e4, let's say, with a follow-up with knight c5, and he ends up with the pawn and a better pawn structure for the exchange. Okay, so white plays bishop e3, so now the knight can't get the c5 without being taken off, so probably rook takes c3, not as good. Stockfish here recommends a5 with the idea that if knight takes b5, I can play a4, removing the guard on the c2 pawn. I can tell you for sure that I didn't see that. So I played knight to b6 with the idea of either supporting d5 or knight c4. Eric castled. I played knight c4 to win the bishop pair. He pretty much has to take it. I take with the rook. He plays rook a d1. And now I play a move that in the book originally I criticized, but now that I have a really strong computer like Stockfish 11, it says my move queen a8 is best, and my pressure on the e4 pawn is really strong. So Eric tries to save it with bishop g5, and now I miss a tactic. You know, I'm probably a good enough player when this game was played that I should have seen this tactic. Knight takes e4. If he plays knight takes e4, then bishop takes g5, wins back the piece and wins the pawn because the knight is pinned to the queen. On the other hand, if he plays bishop takes e7, I can play knight takes c3. If he then tries bishop takes f8, I can take his queen, bishop takes f3, so he can't do that. And he can't take the knight with the queen. If he, let's say he just moves the queen, queen to e3. Sorry, after he can't play bishop f8. So after knight takes c3, I'm hitting the rook. If the queen moves to e3, I can hit the queen again by knight takes d1. Let's say the queen goes to a different square. Queen to g4, let's say. Oh, still can't do it. He doesn't have a lot of good squares. Every square he goes to, I can either hit the queen when I take the rook. He could play queen h5, I guess. Computer still says knight takes d1. If bishop takes f8. Now I have a Philidor's Legacy coming up. Queen checks. King here, knight checks. He can't play king here because double check followed by queen checks and then knight mates. If you don't know that, king here, double check, here, check, here, Philidor's Legacy. So he has to take the knight. Rook takes, queen takes, but now I'm threatening back rank mates. And he really doesn't have much defense. He can't play queen to d1 because the queen takes g2 mate, so it's just mate. All right, so I missed that. I play rook d8. That would have been a cute way to finish the game and would have liked to have seen that. So Eric correctly gets rid of that dangerous knight that's guarding the d5 square. Plays queen g4, continues to guard the e-pawn, threatening knight h5 with some threats. I check him, he plays there, and I play queen e3 to get my queen into the defensive area. I'm taking my queen from away from my king all the way over to where I can help protect the king. Eric forces me to do that. So I trade off. Computer says black's better by about 1 pawn here with his pressure on e4 and his bishop pair. Unfortunately, I don't play it that well. He double attacks the pawn on d6. Computer says I should just play g6. I didn't calculate what would happen on rook takes d6. Computer says rook takes d6, rook takes d6. King g7, and black is up just about winning. I would have looked at this and said, I'm down a pawn. I'm in big trouble here. He can play rook to the 7th rank, which is his best move. Bishop c6, and if he goes after my a pawn, I can skewer his pawns here. I can assure you I never looked this far ahead. So I simply played bishop e7 to guard the pawn. Eric gets his king to the middle. I get my king to the middle. His king comes up. I decide to play with my kingside pawns a little bit. I thought he was a little better here. Stockfish says I'm a little better. King f3. g6. He takes. I take. He plays knight f1. And now I should play king to g7. Instead, I play king to f7, blocking the f file and going up to e6, which is actually the wrong idea. So now Eric puts 2 knights on the d5 square, and he's going to put one there, and he's going to get rid of my bishop pair, and then white's going to be, I thought white would be a lot better. Actually, he's, according to Stockfish 11, he's about equal. So I bring my rook back. That's my best move. He plays knight d5. I have nothing better than to take it. He gets rid of his redundant knights. He starts by taking with the rook first. He can't take with a knight right away because I have rook takes c2. But he's going to guard. Eventually what he's going to do is guard c2 and replace that rook with a knight that I'm never going to be able to get out of there. So I play king e6. It's around this time that I begin to realize that, I have to win this game. Probably first and fourth board are almost over now. And we're 1-1, and I realized that my third board is in a bad position. So I'm just playing on here, even though I don't think I have many really winning chances. Stockfish 11 says it's 0-0-0. This is, years before Kobe Bryant was born. I hate to say it. Kobe was born in 1978. So this is 6 years before he's born. But I'm going to put on my Kobe fight here. I'm going to say, all right, we're going to fight till there's only 2 kings left on the board because that's all I can do. In this case, a loss is as good, or a draw is as good as a loss. So I've got to play. So I play rook checks. He plays king e2. I think maybe I can do something on the f file since his rooks are hitting my d pawn. He tries to neutralize me. I just trade the rooks. I hit his e-pawn just so that he can't play knight to d5 right away. Not that he could anyway because of the c-pawn. He brings the king up. The king can guard one of those 2 pawns. If he's on d3, he can guard both of them. I activate my bishop on g5 with the idea maybe I can come back to c1 in some lines. Eric stops bishop c1 with king to d1. Eric's probably pretty happy with a draw here because remember, if my team's going to be down 2-1, then Eric knows his team's going to be up 2-1. So just like for me, a draw is as bad as a loss, for Eric, a draw is as good as a win. So he doesn't have to really do anything. All he has to do is not lose the game. By the way, we're playing, I think the time limit for the USATE was 50 moves in 2 hours, followed by 25 in 1. So we have to make I have to make 13 more moves before time control. And I'm getting a little bit low on time. I mean, I'm not in time trouble, but so I'm banging away here. I play my break move b4, so I can hit his b pawn, and he plays b3, putting his pawns on white squares so they're not targets for the bishop. I attack his h pawn, and I'm hoping he'll play g3 and maybe put his pawns on some dark squares. Eric says, I don't need to win. I'm just going to put all my pawns on white squares so you can't get to them. And now Stockfish 11 is saying that white's ahead by about a half a pawn. So I'm in trouble here. I could actually lose. Now, in some lines, white's threatening to play knight d5, even though I can play rook takes e4. I play bishop g5 to stop that. He plays king e2. Again, Eric doesn't really need to do anything. So I have 9 moves to make before time control. I play bishop c1. I guess I'm going to go bishop b2 and then play bishop d4. And now Eric is a little short on time, but he's not a lot short. Eric's a pretty good player. And now he makes a big, big mistake that lets me play for a win. He forks my rook and my bishop. Whenever you see a move like this, where you say, why is my opponent letting me fork the rook and the bishop? You have to say to yourself, if that move works, I can win the entire game. In which case, let me check it 16 times to make sure it really works, because if I'm missing something, then I don't want to do that move. Well, Tobias-Heisman sometimes will blunder, of course, and allow people to do stuff like this, but a lot of times I've checked it out before he does that, and I realize he can't play knight a2. And Eric does that to my surprise, and I go, you can't do that. Rook takes e4 is check. And now if you attack my king and my bishop, I have a safe check with my rook on f4, and then when you get out of check, I can save my bishop and I'm up a pawn. So all of a sudden, I've gone from worse to winning. But I'm still in a little bit of time trouble. So he plays king to d1 to attack the bishop. Now I just want to make time control and give myself some time to figure this out. So I bring the bishop all the way back. Instead of playing bishop b2, where I might get trapped in with c3 and b4, I didn't have time to figure all that out. Just said, let me play the bishop really safe. I should be winning. Eric plays c4, making my d-pawn backward and keeping his pawns on the opposite color of my bishop. I just play rook f4, getting back onto an open file now that I've won the pawn. Eric plays king to e2, keeping me out of the 7th rank. I play rook f2, rook f7, with the idea of maybe flexibly coming over to the queen side. Again, I have to make 4 more moves to make time control. Eric plays rook f1. I play bishop h4, threatening rook f2 check. And Eric offers to trade rooks. Now, normally, if you're up a pawn and you have enough pawns on the board and there's pawns on both sides of the boards, bishops are better than knights. So when you're winning, you want to trade down. The problem is I have to make 3 moves before time control, and I only have a few minutes to do that. And I want to work out the entire endgame, or at least a lot of it, to make sure I'm really winning. So I thought, well, I'm winning if I trade, and I'm probably winning if I'm not. But if I trade, it's kind of, I'm passing the Rubicon there. I have to have made sure I'm right. While if I don't trade, I'm pretty sure I can always trade later. So I didn't play the best move, which is to trade rooks. I avoided the trade even though I was winning, just because I felt that I could do that later anyway, and I wanted to wait till move 50 to do that. So that's move 48 for me. Eric plays rook f3 to guard his b-pawn. I play bishop f6, so I say, okay, 1 more move for time control. He attacks my pawn, and I don't want to commit myself to push the pawn. I realized he could check me away from the pawn and repeat the position, but I just didn't want to push the pawn until I had more time to think about it. So I play king f5, and now I've got an extra hour on my clock. Okay, so Eric checks me with the rook. I come back. He says, would you like a draw? I'm going to hit your pawn again. If you play king f5, I can keep repeating the position. I said, no thanks. I know I don't want the pawns on the same color as my bishop blocking it in, but my pawns are very mobile. My bishop can always come around. It's not like I really have a bad bishop here, even though all my pawns on the king side are on the same color as the bishop. They're fairly mobile. The board's fairly open, so this is not really a bad bishop at all. Eric just plays rook e3. He doesn't have anything he can do. Now, Stockfish says I should play g4 with a temporary sacrifice of the pawn. For instance, g4, h takes g4, bishop g5, rook d3, e4, and the rook's in some trouble on the 3rd rank. I didn't even look at that, I'm pretty sure. I just played my break move d5, which Stockfish says is a little premature. I should have waited a little bit. Didn't need to do that right away. C takes d5. Of course, he wants to trade and get rid. He wants to trade off the pawns. The rule when you're winning is trade pieces, not necessarily pawns. If you're losing and you can get rid of all the pawns, then of course that's really good for you. For instance, here, if White could trade off 3 pawns for my 3 pawns and leave me with just 1 pawn left, that would be very, very difficult to win. So he plays rook d3 check. I play king e6. He plays king f3. I just play bishop e7, repositioning the bishop. He plays king e4. I play rook b6. Computer says I should have played bishop d6 first. After rook b6, Stockfish suggests he could play rook d5. If he plays rook d5, and now I play bishop d6, he can play rook a5. And, you know, black's still winning, but it's giving him some difficulties. So he plays g4. I play bishop c5, maybe heading for d4 in some lines. And he moves the knight. It's funny because the knight looked like it was really bad on a2 and he wanted to get out of there, but this is the worst time to move the knight. He falls for an easy tactic. The knight was guarding the check. I simply check him, and now to his embarrassment, his only legal square allows me a pawn fork, winning the rook. And Eric says, okay, Dan, you got it. We managed to tie that match 2-2. So we went into the last round with 3.5. My chess club, Germantown Academy, had 4. And so I was in that kind of position. You remember how Kobe had to come back to Philadelphia and play against the 76ers, and he remained an Eagles fan and stuff, but as a Lakers player, he had to play against the 76ers. So, you know, he had to like the Lakers, and which he always did anyway, and, you know, he was playing against the Sixers in the 2001 championship, and a lot of people here in Philadelphia didn't like some of his comments, but he was playing to win. Well, I was in the same position in the next round. In the next round, I was playing for my college, but I was playing against my own local chess club that I grew up in that helped make me a good player, the Germantown Chess Club. So in the final round, we were playing Germantown for the championship. And if Germantown tied the match, they would win the championship. And if we won the round, we would at least tie for the championship. And I had a draw on second board against Frank Camerata. And Rich Pariseau was playing Donald Byrne on first board. And Rich Pariseau was winning in time trouble. And Rich could have forced a draw with repetition of position, but Rich was winning. He didn't want to take a draw, even though that would probably win them the national championship. So Rich played for a win in a good position, and then he blundered. And Donald Byrne, in big time trouble, found Rich's mistake, and Donald Byrne was able to win the game, very luckily. And we were the 1972 U.S. Amateur Team Champions. So we did manage to win. So I not only had to fight on this game in the next to last round, but I had to play against my own home club, the Germantown Chess Club, in the last round, and I had to fight against them just like Kobe had to fight against Philadelphia during his career. So there was a little bit of analogies there. And, you know, again, I'm just doing a tribute to Kobe, not trying to really put myself in any kind of same category, but, you know, well, winning the U.S. Amateur Team Championship was a national championship. So in the chess world, that's not a little thing. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed today's video. My condolences to the Bryant family and all the people out there who are heartbroken. There's a lot of people in my area who knew Kobe really well. They've been calling the radio stations. I talked to one of my doctors, and he said he used to go over to the gym and Kobe would be over there working out. So people here really knew him quite well. And it's a sad week in Lower Merion, Pennsylvania. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.